Have you ever stood in the middle of a cluttered room and thought, how did it get this bad? Maybe you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or even a little embarrassed by the piles of stuff you don't know what to do with. Trust me, you're not alone. In today's episode, we're diving into why decluttering can feel so impossible and, more importantly, how to start changing that. Whether it's sentimental items, fear of regret, or just not knowing where to start. We're going to unpack the real reasons behind the clutter and share some simple, actionable steps to help you begin. If you're ready to take the first step towards a more peaceful, manageable home, stick around. This episode is for you. Well, hey there, I am Jennifer Roskamp, a certified life coach and homeschool mom of 9 who is passionate about helping women just like you embrace the here and now while also being focused on creating the life you actually want. As a midlife mom in her 40s, about to be a mom in my 50s, I've realized that it's so easy to lose yourself in caring for your family, your home, and all the things. Until one day you realize you're not even sure who you are anymore or what you even want in life. So on this podcast, we're going to work on managing yourself well so that you can manage all of the other things and people well too. So let's dive into what it means to manage your home, your time, your family, and yourself well. This is the Intentional Midlife Mom Podcast. So clutter, it is one of the most common things that I help women with who come to me for coaching. I think one of the things that is frustrating about it is that we think there's something wrong with us. We think because the clutter is there, we have failed. I think it's one of the most universal struggles that we feel that with as women. I'm so excited that you're here, by the way. Whether this is your first podcast or you've listened to every single episode, I'm so excited that you are here. Lately, I've been thinking about clutter in our lives, the physical stuff that piles up and makes us feel overwhelmed and sometimes guilty and even a little bit embarrassed. And like I said in the intro, maybe that's something you can relate to. And I'll be honest, I've been there. I remember standing in my basement one day, staring at the piles of stuff that I didn't know what to do with. And I felt completely stuck. There were things that my kids had outgrown, things I thought I might need one day, and things that I felt too guilty to get rid of because I spent good money on them. It was overwhelming, to say the least. And if you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. Clutter is such a common struggle, especially for women in midlife. We're managing so many different responsibilities, and often our homes become a reflection of that mental load. But today, I want to unpack why decluttering feels so hard, and more importantly, how you can start changing that. By the end of this episode, you'll have a better understanding of really what's holding you back and some practical steps to take right away. So let's dive in. So if you've ever heard me on this podcast, even, you know that I am big about asking really good questions. I talk about how you have to have the correct diagnosis or understanding of a problem so that you can solve the problem. So often what we do when we have a challenge or a struggle or a problem like clutter, we just go after the clutter. And what we end up doing is we end up treating the symptoms again, without understanding the problem, without understanding our relationship with the problem. How did I get here? Why is this a problem in my life? Because my life is different from your life, and your life is different from your sister's life, and your friend's life, and your neighbor's life, and your coworker's life. And so because we all have these differences, clutter is therefore it's not a problem that's universally the same. It looks different on all of us. It's a problem that I feel like, 90% of women have at some point in their lives, whether it's just because we're so busy or again, because the mental load that it takes to try to deal with it is just too much. It's something that we all have to deal with, and that I think it's a situation we all end up finding ourselves in. But the solution is going to look different for each one of us because the diagnosis behind it is going to be unique to each one of us. And so I'm really excited to start sharing and teach you a little bit about how to discover more about the why. So let's start first by exploring common reasons why clutter feels so impossible to tackle. And so there are a few big reasons I find that women hold on to stuff. And if any of these resonate with you, just again, know that you are not alone. So the first reason is sentimental attachment. This is emotional attachment. This is you're hanging on to this stuff because it is emotionally impossible to get rid of it. That's how it feels. Maybe it's your child's first pair of shoes or a stack of drawings from when they were little, all those homemade Mother's Day cards and school projects. These items feel like memories. And so letting them go can feel like letting go of a part of your child's life or even your own identity as a mom. And so another big reason that we hang on to clutter is this, what I'm calling the fear of regret. You might think, what if I need this someday? Whether it's an extra set of dishes or a sweater you haven't worn in years, there's this little voice in the back of your mind that says, what if I'm making a big mistake by letting this go? And then there's what I call perfectionism and procrastination. These are the double P's. You might want to declutter, but you feel like you need to do it perfectly or all at once. And that's just so overwhelming. And so instead, you put it off thinking, I'll tackle this when I have more time, when I have more energy, when I have more clarity, when I have a better plan, when you fill in the blank, right? My kids are off from school. My kids are back in school. It's winter. It's summer. This other project is done. Whatever it is, I will work on this when. And so we all know what happens next, though, right? That day never seems to come. So again, does any of this sound familiar? These are real challenges, but the good news is that they're not impossible to overcome. So let's talk about how to do that. So the first thing we need to have really is a mindset shift. Again, as a life coach, as a certified life coach for women, especially midlife women, because man, we are a rare breed. I turned 50 in the last year. You know, it's just the view looks different from here and life looks different from here. And so I have found as a coach and in my own life that the key to breaking free from clutter, it isn't just about getting rid of stuff. It has to be about shifting your mindset first. Spoiler alert, anything you want to do, accomplish, start, stop, change, improve, it all is going to start with your mindset. Again, spoiler alert there. But for our purposes here today, I want to share a few powerful mindset shifts that can help make all the difference when it comes to your clutter. So the first shift is to reframe your relationship with stuff. Again, we need to reframe your relationship with stuff. It's important to remember that your memories don't live in things. They don't live in the things you're struggling to get rid of. Your memories, they live in you. Keeping every piece of artwork your child has ever created, it's not going to make the memories any more meaningful. Instead, you could choose a few special pieces to keep and let the rest go, knowing that the memories are still yours to hold on to. Let me say that again. The memories are still yours to hold on to. So the second shift to focus on is, again, to keep your eyes focused on what you're gaining, not what you're losing. Keep your focus on what you're gaining, not on what you're losing. And so instead of thinking, I'm giving away this expensive dress that I never wore or I wore one time, try reframing it like this. Try saying, I'm gaining more space and peace of mind. So again, do you see that shift there? In the first example, you're focused on what you're giving away. You're focused on the negative in that way. I'm giving away this expensive dress. But when you shift it, you're looking at what you're gaining. And you're not focused on what you're losing, you're focused on what you're gaining. I'm gaining more space and peace of mind. And so when you let go of items that no longer serve you, you're making room for the life you want to create. Did you ever think of looking at it that way? Again, our clutter and even the four walls, what's inside the four walls of our home, they extend far beyond the four walls of our home. If you're struggling to make room in your life for the things that really matter to you, gaining control over clutter is a key ingredient in helping you make room for other things in your life in general, not just in your home, but in your life. So it's important to have that mindset shift. And finally, remember that perfect is the enemy of progress. Let me say that again. Perfect is the enemy of progress. And this is so important to share right here because I will say, I think it is probably accurate. Again, I actually haven't kept an actual tally to actually total this up, but I think I could accurately say that out of all of the women that I coach all week long, week after week, month after month, year after year, I think that it is accurate for me to say that 70 to 80% of those women self-identify as on the perfectionist side of things. Meaning they know that at times their expectations for themselves and others are unrealistically high. They would say that at times they strive for perfection, maybe not straight across the board, but they certainly would self-identify that in certain situations, certain circumstances, they are shooting for perfection. They are expecting perfection, again, out of themselves or others. And so when it comes to decluttering doesn't have to be all or nothing. Here's something else I know about as a life coach, which is it's actually the anatomy of your brain. It's the wiring of your brain. Your brain is wired to see things in black or white. It's wired to see things in this all or nothing way. But that does not help us. It does not help us at all when it comes to decluttering. There's not a right way of doing it, nor is there a wrong way. But again, your brain with this all or nothing, black or white way of looking at things, it assumes that there is. And it also, with this all or nothing thinking, it means that if I can't do it exactly the way that I want, or exactly the way that someone told me to do it, or exactly the way that my mom used to do it, or my friend does it, or someone told me I should do it, or if it can't be exactly the way that I envision it, or exactly the way that I wish it could be, I don't want anything to do with it. That's all a part of that all or nothing thinking. And so for most of us, from a time standpoint, we're not going to be able to tackle clutter and have it be something that is only full steam ahead. A lot of times there's going to be a 2 steps forward and a 1 step back, or maybe a 1 step forward and a 2 steps back situation. But again, when we're shooting for perfection, when we're focused on perfection instead of progress, we're going to easily grow frustrated with ourselves, end up with shame, and probably stop altogether. So it's important when it comes to clutter to start small. Again, this is for you if you know that you lean on the perfectionistic all or nothing way of looking at your clutter. It's important to start small. It's important to focus on progress, not perfection. The important thing is to just get started. So here's a quick win that you can try today. So the next time you find yourself holding on to something and debating whether to keep it or not, ask yourself, does this item align with the life I want to live? Does this item align with or maybe support the life I want to live? That simple question can be so clarifying. Write that one down. Does this item align with the life I want to live? Or Does this item support the life I want to live? Answer that question. So let's get to some simple, actionable steps to actually start decluttering. So now that we've talked about 3 main reasons why clutter feels hard, and again, let me quickly review those. Number 1, it's if you are emotionally tied to it, this sentimental attachment. That's reason number 1. I call these clutter languages, by the way. So sentimental attachment or emotional attachment. Language number 2, fear of regret. What if I want that back? What if I need that? What if I miss that? Right? Fear of regret. And then perfectionism and procrastination, those double P's. That's clutter language number 3. So again, let's talk about how then to get practical. And by the way, so those are the 3 clutter languages, but don't forget, you've also got to shift your mindset. You've got to shift your mindset, especially in how you view your relationship with your stuff, to focus on what you're gaining, not what you're losing, and to focus on progress over perfection. All right. So now that we've done all those things, let's get super practical. And I've got a 3-step process for you. Step number 1, choose one small area to start with. Pick something that is small and manageable. Like maybe it's a single drawer or a single shelf or even just a box. We want to choose something super small so that the resistance is minimal. Remember, I've talked about resistance here on the podcast before. Resistance is when you have those points of friction when you think about doing something. The resistance starts to rise when you start to tell yourself all the reasons not to do it, or all the ways it's going to be difficult or annoying or time-consuming. Or maybe you're talking and thinking to yourself all the reasons why whatever it is you're doing is just going to get undone. Why bother, right? So we want that resistance to be low. And so if we start super small, chances are the resistance that you feel, all of the arguments about why not to do it, those are going to be minimal. The reason we also want to start small is because it gives us the opportunity to start building momentum. And we all know what momentum is, right? Momentum is our opportunity to take something that we're doing and not have to. Momentum means that we don't have to put as much effort into it as we go forward. The first time we do it, it might be the hardest time. The next time we do it, it'll be just a little bit easier. And then the next time, a little bit easier. And that's what momentum looks like when we're talking about clutter. So starting small helps you build momentum without feeling overwhelmed. So that's step number 1, is just to choose your one small area to start with. Step number 2, use the 3-box method. The 3-box method. So you're going to grab 3 boxes or bags, and you're going to make sure you know what each one is. Super smart to label them. And so you want to label them in these 3 ways: keep, donate, or trash. As you go through this chosen area, sort everything into one of these 3 categories. Don't overthink it. You're best off just trusting your gut. You're best off just trusting your gut. If you know that you struggle with indecision with this, you need to give yourself a time frame. You have to make the decision whether you're going to keep it, donate it, or trash it within 10 seconds, maybe 15. No more than 15 seconds you've got to decide, because here's what we women tend to do too, is we overthink and we overanalyze and we waste so much energy doing that we easily get decision fatigue and pitter out. We don't want that to happen. We want to be able to keep that momentum going. So put yourself on a time limit to actually make the decision about each individual item. Don't overthink it. It can be a super smart thing to go with your gut. Step 3 is to set a timer for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Most of us are willing to do pretty much anything for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a very small ask. 10 minutes, again, we can easily waste away 10 minutes without even thinking about it. And so for this reason, 10 minutes is a great amount of time to start with. I find 10 minutes, the natural resistance that we feel is probably pretty low. And so 10 minutes, I've played around. Personally, I've played around with all different time frames. I asked myself for 20 minutes. I've asked myself for 5 minutes. I've asked myself for 12. I've asked myself for 10. And I have found 10 minutes to kind of be like this secret sauce. So step 3 is you're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And here's the really important follow-up. You need to give yourself permission to stop when the timer goes off. You have completed what you have asked of yourself when that timer goes off. Even though it's only been 10 minutes, you have completed everything you've asked yourself to do. If you put your head down and actually do the work for 10 minutes, the timer goes off, you are done. And in reality, you might be surprised at how much you can accomplish in really this short amount of time. I know we can kind of discount 10 minutes and think, how much can I actually get done in 10 minutes? You know what? If you set that timer, a lot of us are a little bit competitive by nature, and that's where that timer can come in pretty handy too. It's kind of like that beat the clock, right? I think about, so many game shows, at least game shows back when I was a kid, they had this beat the clock feature to them. But there's something to that, right? So you set this timer and you just head down, do the work without overthinking, really kind of in this, again, competition sort of way. How much can I actually get done in 10 minutes? When you are head down, approaching it from that angle, you really likely will be surprised at how much you can accomplish in just this short period of time. And if you are on a roll, you can always keep going. Again, the biggest hurdle is almost always going to be the getting started hurdle. And this is especially true in what we're talking about today with clutter. The longer you've been facing it, the longer you have been trying to deal with this, the more important it is going to be for you to just start. Because your track record, your history, your current habit is that it's there. You would like to take care of it. You might even write it down on a list. You're actually with clarity saying, this is what I intend to do, but you're not doing it, at least not in a way that's accomplishing much or making much headway. But we need that to change. And once that changes, because you ask yourself for only 10 minutes and you get over that just getting started hurdle, well, now the pendulum has shifted in the other direction. Now, instead of having this repeated habit of, yes, I need to do that, but you don't. Yes, I really need to do that, but you don't. And you don't, and you don't, and you don't. And they all just pile up that way. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this, wow, look, I did it. Now you've got, again, this opposite experience to build from. And once you have that, it changes your perspective. It really, even just in one time of showing up and doing the work, it changed perception of what's possible. So set that timer for 10 minutes, head down, do the work. And if you're on a roll, you can always choose to keep going. But if not, when the timer goes off, again, you gave yourself permission to be done. And so you have every opportunity and every right. You have earned the right of being done. So again, remember, when it comes to your clutter, it's not about doing it all at once. It's about taking small, consistent steps that over time are going to add up to start making some serious headway on this clutter. So let's recap what we talked about today. In reality, clutter feels overwhelming for so many reasons. The 3 reasons or clutter languages that we talked about today were sentimental or emotional attachment, fear of regret that you got rid of it, and then perfectionism. But by shifting your mindset and then taking small, it's this powerful 1-2 punch. You have to shift your mindset and then take small, actionable steps. When you do that, you can start to take control of the clutter and create a home that feels peaceful and manageable. Manageable. I love that word. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be pristine. It just needs to be something that you feel when you think of your home. It feels manageable. I can handle it. It's acceptable. I love those words. Those are non-perfection words. If this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to join me in my upcoming clutter workshop. It's coming up at the end of February. We'll talk about it and I'll share info here on the podcast. So just know that when we have more information, we'll share it here. But this workshop, we're going to talk about these 3 clutter languages that we talked about today, and we're going to talk about all of the others. There's 7 others, and we're just like we did here today. I'm going to have simple, actionable, practical ways for you to start breaking free from that clutter, depending on what your clutter language is. Because again, remember, it all comes back to that why. You've got to understand why I have clutter, why I struggle with getting rid of these things, why I hang on to these things. That is so much the key. So in this workshop, we're also going to dive deeper into the mindset shifts and the strategies that I shared today, along with some others. So the clutter that you have today, it doesn't have to continue to weigh you down. And just to kind of give you a little preview of what's coming in the workshop, I've actually got a free download of all 10 clutter languages here in the show notes for you. Make sure to check it out down there. You'll be able to read a little bit about each one of these different languages, and it'll explain a little bit about what that means so that you can identify which resonates with me most. And know this, different types of clutter might have different clutter languages. You might be sentimental and emotional when it comes to your kids' things, but maybe you have that fear of letting go, that fear of regret. Maybe that's what you have with some of the other items that you have in your garage, for instance. So you're not always standardly kind of pegged into one clutter language. It can vary depending on what the things actually are. So make sure that you grab that download below so that you have some time to start thinking about, what is my clutter language? You'll have plenty of time to start thinking, start observing yourself, and start putting these actionable tips and steps that I shared here with you today in motion. You'll get a little preview of the deeper work that we're going to be doing in the clutter workshop. Again, that will be at the end of February. We'll have some more details coming up here soon. But for now, make sure to grab that free download down in the show notes. So until we talk again, make it an intentional day.